Hi, welcome back to the Launch Point Leader Podcast. My name's Lori.
I'm Bo.
We are so excited to be back with you, Bo, here
Right?
this week. It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah.
You know, we had a little interlude there. But we are so excited to be back sharing some letters our listeners has written in. And if you want to write us in, you can also just visit our website, launchpointleader.com, and we'd love to hear from you guys as well.
And I appreciate you letting me back in this week. I know y'all changed the locks on the door, invited some other people,
secret
that
B
kind
testing
of stuff.
in the back, trying to figure it out.
It's totally fine. It's totally fine. I get it. I'm refreshed.
You're refreshed.
Didn't go anywhere, but
sometimes you just need a little break in person.
Maybe so.
Yeah,
maybe
and
so.
here you are.
A lot of good insight from the other folks.
Oh, they were so great, weren't they? They were also nervous going in, and then as soon as the camera started, it was like they were so calm and steady, and they did such a great job. So.
Good. Well, I will try to replicate that today for you.
You know what? So far, so good.
All right.
You're doing great.
Great. Got it.
All right. So let's get to our letter from today. It says, Dear LaunchPoint, one of my best employees, the kind of person who goes above and beyond, gets results, and is the favorite of the majority of the team, has been dropping hints that they might be looking for a new job. They haven't said it outright, but their comments about exploring options and suddenly updating their LinkedIn make it pretty clear, in my opinion.
LinkedIn. It'll get you every time.
Here's my dilemma. I don't want to lose them, but I also don't want to be in a position where I'm begging them to stay. I know people grow and move on, but their departure would be a big hit to our team. How do I handle this? Do I bring it up directly or try to even make a counteroffer before they get another one? Or should I just wait it out and see what happens? Thanks for your thoughts. Slipping Superstar.
Yeah. Well, I think with LinkedIn, if they've got the whole open to work badge, on their picture,
that's
maybe just send them an application, for the company they currently work for.
Where they currently are.
Potentially, that would be option one.
Change your badge to hiring.
Now hiring. That's it. Yeah. I think the first thing that always comes to my mind with this, and some of our listeners might disagree with me on this, and that's okay. This isn't the end all be all. But the first thing that comes to mind with high performers that are liked by everybody, I've really got two things. The first is your performance of your highest performers is always going to fall to the lowest acceptable level in the organization. So whatever you're accepting in the organization, the high performers, in my 20 some odd years of experience, the high performers are going to gradually drop down to around that level. And because they've been high performers for a long time, it's not going to come as much of a shock to you as the leader because they're still going to act the same, have the same kind of energy usually, but their actual performance itself and sometimes attitude changes. So I would ask this listener to say, like, what's the least that you are accepting in terms of performance in your organization?
So kind of not only evaluating this person and maybe their role, but looking at the team as a whole and saying, could this be the cause of some?
Yeah, I think so, because you've been around long enough to be on different teams here and there, and I've been around to be on different teams. And it's like, at the end of the day, if I'm not being rewarded for exceptional accomplishments, and I'm still treated the same way as people that are not achieving, then what's my motivation to continue to achieve at that point?
Sure.
And right or wrong, right? Yeah. You can always have this, and I believe in this, your internal desire to be excellent, to work for a higher cause, like all of those things are still true. But if this person is coming to work every single day and what you typically expect and accept from other people is lower than what their best is, they're always going to drop back down to what you accept.
That's good. That's really interesting. It's a similar thought of what I was thinking as I was reading through this earlier. And I was thinking through as well, like, it's also a good chance to evaluate yourself as a leader, because we do talk about a lot. You never want to become the cap on your business. And a lot of times when we work with individuals, so much of what I hear, especially from either that you're in your first kind of leadership role or you're kind of feeling stagnant after the first little bit of time, is you hear like, I just don't see what's next for me. I don't see a path forward in the company. And so I think that's something to evaluate too. Even if there is a path, if that person isn't seeing it, if they're an overachiever, like you're saying, if they're going above and beyond, they're very personal, I think their mind's automatically going to go to, well, let's look at other options. If it isn't it here, I'm not going to stop my growth. I want to keep growing. So I think it also could be an option to say to them, hey, I just want to have a talk about your growth here and where do you see yourself? And then you're getting insight directly from them of where they see. And they, if you guys do have a great relationship, they'll also probably share, hey, I'm not feeling or seeing my opportunity, whether it's through title, whether it's through responsibilities. showing that they do have that continued growth is a great way to keep those high performers.
Yeah, great point. So I think the two things we've said so far,
Yeah.
right, are check your standards.
Yep.
What's the lowest thing that you're accepting? And then proactively, before we ever get to a point where you hear chatter, proactively start talking with your especially high achievers to say, yeah, what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself going? Let's talk about the pathways. Let's talk about how we can help get you to where you want to be. So I think that's a great point. The third thing I would add to that would just be maybe the third and 3A or 3B, whatever, would be, are you as their leader helping them win every single day at work? There's a reason, and if it's not the performance issue like we talked about in option 1, there's a reason that they are wanting or thinking about leaving. And so are you helping them win every single day, or are there barriers in place for them that they don't have the ability to remove, or that they've not been coached or given the resources to be able to remove that cause them to lose on a daily basis? Because I think that's very demeaning as well.
Sure.
Even if they're a high performer, they've got a planned pathway. If you as their leader aren't helping them remove those barriers to win, then I think that could kind of get into a rough situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think I don't know if we call this option 4, it's a totally separate issue. I think sometimes the hardest one at all is maybe your company isn't the best long-term fit for this person. And like, we do this a lot with our leadership program with Chick-fil-A. A lot of those people come in specifically to go on, whether it's with Chick-fil-A or somewhere else. The time comes for them to look for something else. And we've had people go on into all sorts of different industries, right? And I think those people that you see the potential and you see the joy they bring the team, like, it's really painful just as a person sometimes, much less being a leader. Like, it's painful to say, oh, it might not be best for them. And, I want the best for them, hope to stay in touch. But I think there's that kind of acknowledgement. And I think that's individual, and it's hard to know just from this short letter, but thinking through, what if this company is in the long term? Now, don't start there. I think start with all of the things, but I think especially once you've had a one-on-one conversation with this person and you've evaluated things with your team and you go, yeah, there's probably things to work on, but overall, maybe it isn't the best fit. Now, are you going to tell them that they should go and that kind of thing? I wouldn't necessarily say in that situation like you would do that, but I think it's acknowledging that and not overworking and focusing just on this person so much when long term they're going to go anyway. I think is what can happen.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's a good point to that. And I think the only other thing I would say along with that is making sure as their leader that you're connecting their daily work back to their why.
Yeah, their personal why.
And why they're there in the first place. And maybe there's a gap there potentially. But if you can really look at that and make sure there's not a gap there, then I think you're right. Sometimes you have gone as far as you need to go.
Yeah.
And you need to launch somewhere else.
Launch point.
There it is.
Absolutely.
So sometimes that's the case. I'll give you a flip side. Are you ready for the flip side on this?
Probably.
Okay. Probably.
I'll stop you, I guess, if I'm not.
So the flip side of this is I have found in the 20 some odd years of doing what I've done, leading teams of all sizes, that a lot of times the quote high performer, most favorite member of the team, is actually not who you think they are sometimes.
Ooh.
And so here's what I'll say. And again, this is the dark side, I guess, of this. And it does happen.
We're looking at all the possibilities.
We're trying to come at it from all angles. Is if this person hasn't come directly to you and they're a high performer and they're supposed to be for you and you're for them and all those things, they've not come to you and said, hey, like I'm struggling.
Yeah.
These are some things that I'm struggling with, some things I'm thinking about. These are some things that I'm needing from you or the company. If they've not done that, but you're hearing through second and third party that they're dropping hints about leaving, truthfully, I personally can't think of a time in 20 years that I've had somebody like that I've gone to basically negotiated with, right? Had them choose to stay and it actually worked out
in the long term.
in the long term, and long term meaning like 3, 6, 9 months.
Yeah, so not even a few years down the line.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that is you do have to be careful for those people that think they're better than the role that they have, and they think the grass is always greener on the other side. That, again, this is the dark side of it. But if they've not come directly to you and they've not been willing to talk about what they're looking for, then it's oftentimes not a great idea to go and beg them to stay, if you will.
And that's good because, I mean, they even brought that up. Like, do I approach them before they even approach me with a counteroffer or, things like that,
I've kind of looked at it this way, like shooting stars are fun to watch, right? And they get a lot of excitement, but then when they're done shooting, they're done.
That's it.
Right? And so sometimes these high performers can come into an organization and be this shooting star that's like, everybody watch. And then they burn out. We talked about 4 or 5 points to begin with that burnout might be because of us, right? As leaders. But then there's also the idea too that like that's could potentially be who they are. Yeah. And they're just looking for the next thrill, if you will.
And that's good. And I think the point I was making earlier, you really highlighted the reason why you should not fight, put everything else aside to fight for this, is because I, as a leader, have gotten lost in the fight for one person or one person's good, that I've lost the good for the entire team. And you come up for air and it's not worked out with that person.
Say that again. You've put the fight in for one person, but lost sight
of your team. And for good, you go, this person is great for my team. They've done this, this, and this in the past. You look at their track record. You look at even what they're still doing. And then you look up and you go, oh, they're still leaving. And now my team's suffering even more because I haven't been, fulfilling what I need to. And I think that's what I was thinking about when I talked about not letting, not giving all your focus on that.
I love that. That's a great point. I had one of those situations several years ago where, for me, I hired somebody for a position that had just had consistent turnover. I hadn't found the right person. It was a newer position. I wanted to elevate professionalism and all those things. And I found this person, and they, to me, were phenomenal. Yeah. Like, presented well, was everything I was looking for.
Yeah, it's like they looked at your list beforehand.
Exactly. And whenever they were in front of me and a few other people, it was just unbelievable. And the work that they were producing was incredible. Like, it was so far ahead of where we had been. Yeah. But there were some cracks that started to form in the surface with the team. And so I would hear these murmurings around, and because I thought of this person as a high performer, like they were going to take our organization to the next level. Yeah. And so I start hearing these kind of murmurs in the background and all, and I'm like, okay, y'all need to work that out, because clearly that's not going to be the case. And, leader, I should have dug in a little bit more, but around me and everything I saw, it was good. So I think that's just another opportunity as a leader to realize this person might be a great performer. Right. They really might be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this might not be the situation for them at all. But for me, I've been bamboozled, I guess,
That's before
to a degree, because all the metrics were hit. All of the things for me were going great. All the things in front of the collective team were going well. But then behind closed doors, that high performer actually was a cancer that was spreading in the organization. So just, again, kind of maybe a third layer to look into there. Again, not to go dark here on this.
Sure.
But just something to think about.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. It seems simple in the front, right? It was like a 2-paragraph letter, one of the shorter ones we've gotten. But when you look at it, there's a lot of different layers. And I think it's good pieces of advice that no matter the person or the situation, which no two situations will ever be the same, right? You've got these pillars that you can go back to. You check your standards first and foremost, proactively talking to the high achievers, connecting with them, and then helping them win at work, I think, was another good one. And then I think once you've done those, that's when you evaluate the other side of that coin, like we talked about. Like, are you spending too much focus on this one person? And do you just have to let go of that control for a little bit, quite honestly, and focus on the best of the team, no matter the outcome in that situation?
Yeah. And I think those first 1 or 2 points that we talked about or sections is that's the job of a leader to make sure they've done that. They can lay their head on their pillow at night
Yeah.
and be fully confident they've given them the opportunity to succeed. The other side of that is, hey, those last couple things we talked about, there's very little we can do to I think impact that. And so you just kind of got to let that go and let them go at some points. So, and you'd be surprised. I'll say that the last thing, and I know I'm going a little bit long, but I think you'd be surprised sometimes when your quote high performer leaves at how many other people step up and fill that gap. I've seen it time and time again in my career that I love high performers, but it's been pretty awesome to see other people come together and fill the gap and take it to the next level when the person that you thought you could never lose leaves. Not always the case, but it's also something just to
You've
consider.
got enough of those to know it's not a fluke and that you can have trust and faith in your team to
absolutely.
come and step up.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Slipping Superstar, thank you so much. I appreciate you writing in and just sharing this. Like we went into, there's a lot of different scenarios, and I know you're not the only person that's going through this. We can both think of multiple instances where this has been relevant to us, and I know it is for our listeners. So thank you so much for writing in. If you or someone else out there wants to write us in, you can visit our website at launchpointleader.com. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great day.